Hey guys, welcome back to Hippo Supercoach, and today we're going to be discussing every relevant midfielder for Supercoach in 2023. So if you are new, make sure you drop a like, hit that subscribe button. It helps me produce more content. Anyway, let's get into it. So we're going to start off with Rory Laird. So the thing with Laird is I'm very, very tempted to pick him because you just know he's so safe. If you look at his scores, he actually almost never went under 100. I think he had maybe 2 games under 100. So we'll quickly check this. So he had a 97 and a 93. So his bad games are very good still. The only problem is his price tag. And 2021, what did he average? 116. So he's got a nice trajectory, and the fact that he moved back into the midfield or into the midfield as a full-time mid is very tempting. And another big thing about Laird is he just doesn't get tagged. For whatever reason, teams just don't tag him. I think they sort of think, oh, they're playing Adelaide, we don't need a tag. Yeah, I don't know. No one seems to rate him on the opposition, so that's a very, very big bonus. And I think if you're going to pick someone, if you're going to pick, if you're going to pick 2 out of the 4 or the top 5, you definitely have to pick Laird. I wouldn't pick Neale or Miller over Laird. I'll talk about them in a second and discuss why I feel like that. But the only thing with Laird is obviously the value's not great, and hopefully he can come down a little bit in price, which I think he will, maybe to 650, not much. And then we'll have to get him in. I've got to find a way to get him in. But yeah, so Rory Laird, I mean, you know what, if you're going to pick him, I think it's a great idea. Own percentage, what is his own percentage? Rory Laird. I don't know if you can see it without actually having it in like the main screen. I don't think it's very high. We'll quickly open a new tab right here and just Supercoach, and we'll have a look at his own percentage if we trade him out. So his own percentage is 10%, so he's basically a pod. Yeah, he basically is a pod. 10%, wow, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Anyway, we'll keep going down and we may as well use this menu. So Clayton Oliver, I think he's almost non-negotiable. The only downside about him is the hand injury that he's still apparently battling. So obviously that's a bit of a problem, a bit of a worry, but I mean, it's Clayton Oliver. The dude's been a Jet almost since he came into the competition, so it's very hard to not start him, and he's just had that nice trajectory upwards. 700k, price tag is obviously the only thing that's probably going to hold people back. That being said, 46% of teams, not many people are holding back on him. The other thing with Clayton Oliver is obviously the addition of Brodie Grundy. Luke Jackson was more of like a follow-up ruck, like a Shane Mumford type, whereas Grundy and Gawn are just tap rucks. Pretty much 100% of the time Oliver's going to be in the mid, and he's going to be getting first use of that ball. So, you know what, he could even average 130 plus this year, and it wouldn't surprise me. So, the other factor with Oliver is he's probably going to be a captain option every week, if not every second week. So, I think, you know what, if you're going to risk not having him, it's a dangerous game to play, just because a lot of opponents you have, provided you're playing in a semi-competitive league, are going to have him as captain or vice captain almost every week. So yeah, don't pick Oliver at your own peril. Lachie Neale. So I really don't like the Neale pick this year, and the reason being is just he got tagged so often, and you pick him at that price, 766k, 676k, sorry, and it's like you just know he could get tagged, and he will do, like, he'll just. It's almost like he concedes when he gets tagged a bit, and I don't like that at all. He obviously is capable of shaking them, but he can really get shut down quite heavily. So I would personally pass on Neale. The only thing is, obviously the upside is there. He starts seasons really, really well. You obviously can't deny that with Lachie. So yeah, he's just one. I just think he's not a trap by any means. He'll be a top 8 for sure. Probably a top 4 again, but I just think upgrade target for me rather than start with him. But like I said, he does start really well, so I could see why you would, but just me personally, I don't think he's a good option. And it's a very similar position to Touk Miller. So Touk Miller was someone I was always on, like even before he really broke out. I noticed when he changed from a tagger to just a normal on baller, and he just took that next step, and no one was really talking about him. But this year I just think now Touk's getting attention. It's annoying, and 37% of people have jumped on him, which I can see why. He's a Jet, obviously, and looking at photos of him in the preseason, like, he looks shredded, he looks motivated. obviously he's got an unreal engine, but I just think it gets so much attention from oppositions, and that is 100% the worst thing for me about Touk Miller. So yeah, I just think he'll get tagged too often, unfortunately, and I think tagging will get a bit worse this year. I honestly get the feeling, because you see it working on a lot of teams. They shut him down. So yeah, Callum Mills is an interesting one. So super duper pod, 7%, well, not much more than lead when you think about it, but yeah, pod nonetheless for a midfielder. His upside is insane. Obviously, he had that 210 game or whatever he had. If he plays as a full-time mid, he will be top 3 mid, top 4 mid, no doubt about it. The question mark is, are they going to keep him in the mid, or are they going to put him in the back line and play that like intercept role or whatever he was doing? Some stupid role. I don't know what the coach is thinking. Like, why Mills out of everyone? Another positive for Mills is the fact that he stat pads very hard. You can quite clearly tell he cares about his stats. He's always looking for the ball on the outside around the ground, and yeah, runs to the back line, gets cheap kicks. So really like that about him. But like I said, you just can't trust the coach. It's the unfortunate circumstance for a lot of these players. Even Jack McRae's one that sort of still on the fence with, just because you can't fully trust Luke Beveridge. But we'll talk about him in a second. So yeah, Mills, I just think like he's just a tough one, because obviously the upside's there, no doubt about it. But yeah. Next one will be Marcus Bontempelli. So his average without Dunkley is 130. You would assume with the addition of Lob that Bont goes at least 125 plus, I would think. Sounds like a lot, but I think he'll probably be M1, to be honest. All logic says that he will be M1 or 2. So yeah, I think it's simple. You have to pick Bont. Very, very hard to see Bont going under 120 this year. Jack McRae is an interesting one. I think if he's played back in that 2021 role, no doubt about it, lock. 127 average, no tag obviously, finds the ball around the ground, loves cheapies, good tackler, might even have something to prove a bit, you know, once he's back in the mid. He might feel like, hey, I'm one of the best mids in this game, you know, I'm going to show why I deserve to have this role. I feel like McRae could be like that. But yeah, just to wait and see, because you don't know about Bailey Smith. Are they going to play him in the mid over him? Because they got the Core Libber, Bont, and then who's that dude going to be? That's the thing. It seems like they do like to run Bailey Smith in there, looking at the back half of last year, which is definitely a concern. No doubt about it, it's a concern. But like I said, logic says Jack McRae goes back into the midfield. Christian Petracca, in my opinion, is not really relevant. I don't see him getting much better than last year, and can go absolutely missing at times. And he's got that X factor. He's a bit like a Dusty. He's always going to be around that top 8 mark. But yeah, for me, probably wouldn't pick him. Don't like his consistency, and I had him pretty much all year last year. So yeah, not a huge fan of Petracca. Merrett, I'm not a huge fan of either. Gets tagged, gets shut down when he gets tagged. If he went a whole season without any attention, be great. But for me, an upgrade target. Andrew Brayshaw, very similar to Merrett, gets tagged very, very easily, and I think Champion Data kind of hates him a bit. I was watching a game last year where he had like 5 kicks. They were all effective, but they were like backwards and sideways, and he scored like 10 points for 5 kicks, and I was like, why do I have this guy? Or what did this guy do to Champion Data? Like, it just made no sense to me. But I think maybe sideways and backwards kicks are considered as ineffective now. I'm not sure. It's very hard to sort of interpret the scoring system, but yeah, Andy Brayshaw, not for me. George Hewitt, not for me. The value last year was insane, obviously being a defender for 300k or whatever he was, or 390k. Yeah, I just don't know about him. Wouldn't pick him. Patrick Crips is a massive one. So he is very close to coming into my team, and I said he was a lock. I said he was non-negotiable. Obviously, my opinion changed a little bit on that, and the reason why is I sort of thought about the stats he was producing in that magical start to the season he had last year, and he's kicking, I think he averaged like 3 goals per game. I was thinking, you take those 3 goals off, and he's probably in the 90s, low 100s. Is that good enough for 611k? I just think there's maybe some better options that are a bit safer. Another thing is, I think he might get more attention being the Brownlow medalist. Probably gets tagged again. I think people definitely disrespected him last year, and they would go to Walsh over him. But I just think, yeah, just that really does worry me. Obviously, the upside is the fact that he's playing with Petracca, where he averaged like 130 with, and Petracca literally looks for him every single time. So that's a huge upside, no doubt about it. And if people are picking Crips, I think it's a great idea. But just that 3 goal average, like, he's not going to kick 3 goals every game. Well, we can't expect him to, at least. 611k, is he going to be top 8? That's the question you have to ask yourself. He won a Brownlow and he wasn't even top 8. But like I said, he didn't have Petracca, so it's a really tough one. But I think Crips is a great pick, and he could start the season very, very hot, which could hurt a lot of teams, my team included. Yeah, I would like to see how he goes in the practice match, because by all reports, he looks really motivated and ready to go. I mean, he's punching on with teammates at training just about. I don't know if you guys saw that Hewitt little scuffle. Hewitt gave him a bump, and it wasn't even a hard bump, and Crips has gotten up and gotten stuck into him. But yeah, I mean, that sort of, those things are green flags in my opinion. It shows he cares and he wants to win and he's hungry and he's passionate. Obviously, we sort of know this about Crips already, but it's just a good validator. Sam Walsh is out. Darcy Parish, so I could see him averaging 120. He had a bit of a down year last year and still averaged 111, so a lot of upside here and a massive pod. But I just wouldn't pick him just because I don't trust him. I don't trust him fully. And I don't think he'll be top 8, because these prices, you got to remember, you're picking players to be top 8 mids. Jack Steele can definitely be top 8. With the whole St Kilda team and setup, I just like to see how they go in the practice match first. I also heard he hasn't been training, so 600k, I probably wouldn't pick a player with an injury interrupted preseason. That being said, Steele is obviously a jet. I started him last year, he was okay, but yeah, I just want to see a bit from Sinclair and Steele, because the whole Ross line factor is very, very, it just throws a spanner in the works. So my opinion, wait and see on Steele, but obviously if you can't quite get up to that 700k mark and you need a 600k player, I think Steele's probably the best out of that sort of crop. Besides Crips, I'd probably go Crips and Steele. Josh Dunkley is a non-negotiable. Josh Kelly's an interesting one, so a lot of people sleeping on him as well. He has got a lot of potential under a new coach. I don't know what his numbers look like under the new coach, but I do know that he's an absolute jet when he's played in the right position. Obviously, there is that injury factor, but he did play 21 games last year, which is a huge plus for him. I think that might be like the most games he's ever played, to be honest, in a season. But yeah, if he wasn't injury prone, I'd probably go with him. I'll tell you why I have Tom Green instead of him in a second. But yeah, Josh Kelly, definitely one to watch in the preseason, because I reckon he could be a massive pod. Ollie Wines, not really Supercoach friendly. I think he won the Brownlow with like a pretty relatively low Supercoach average, so yeah, wouldn't pick him. Travis Boak, I mean, he always starts hot, but he does fade a little bit, so you could almost use him as a cash cow. Get him to go up to bloody 700 or whatever he gets to, and then trade him. But no, being realistic, don't do that. Tom Liberatore, massive pod. I think his numbers only improve with Dunkley gone. I don't really think he played anywhere else anyway, but I don't know if it affects him that much. If he improves, it'd be by about 1 or 2 points, in my opinion. I don't think he'll be a top 8 mid, unfortunately. Luke Parker won't be a top 8, so none of these guys are really relevant. Will Brody's an interesting one, but I don't think he's really relevant this year. Stephen Canelio is very interesting on the forward line, but I'll talk about that in the forward video. Luke Davies-Uniacke, so for me, I just don't like North. A lot of people, like, not a lot of people are picking him, but 7% of teams. How did he finish the year? 116, 119, 97, 99, 100, 92, 125, 124, 141. So really good after the bye. Really, really good after the bye. It looks like about 115 average, 110 average after the bye. But like I said, North, I just don't trust them. They're not going to win enough games. They're probably going to get blown out. most games, and I just don't like picking players from those sort of teams. Bailey Smith, I don't think is really too relevant, just because he's probably not the best Supercoach player. In AFL Fantasy, I reckon he'd be a pretty decent pick. But in terms of like ball use, I don't think he's the greatest. And if he was a forward, he'd definitely be relevant. No doubt about it. I'd have him for sure, but not as a mid. I don't think he'd be a top 8 mid. Tom Green is, in my opinion, he might be a lock. I've really thought about this pick, and his average with like more than 50% or 60% CBAs is like 115. I think that combined with natural progression, he should explode. Like, he should have no worries with CBAs now that Hopper and Taranto are gone. I think he really is ready to explode into maybe a 110 to 115 average. And I think he could be top 8. I really do think he could be a top 8 mid. They reckon in the juniors he was an absolute monster. And I reckon he could get to that level in the AFL now that he's got the CBAs. He's going to be similar to Crips, but he's not going to get attention. He won't get tagged. At least early he won't. And if he gets to 650, I mean, it'd be a big effort to get 650. I guess you're picking him to be a keeper, really. But I genuinely think he could be a keeper. And with 36 trades, it's not too risky to go for someone like Tom Green, because you can always sideways that, because it is such, like, we're used to dealing with 30 trades, right? 6 extra trades. We're never going to use a trade for a COVID injury, okay? We're never going to use a trade for a 2-week injury. So why would you not take a few more risks with these COVID trades? Well, quote unquote COVID trades. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Tom Green, in my opinion, is a massive lock. I don't want many people in my league to pick him because I really think he'll be a bit of a pod. But yeah, I really rate him, and he'll definitely be in my team unless he has a really poor preseason match. Chad Warner's another one. People reckon he could be a tag target. I think you're probably right. He is very explosive and very damaging. And he's actually just a jet, to be honest. Like, his grand final was unbelievable. Easily best on ground in my opinion, including the Geelong players. But I don't like picking too many breakouts. Like, for me, it's just got to be one. And I'd just rather Tom Green over Warner, to be honest. And the last guy we're going to discuss is Tom Mitchell. So, Tom Mitchell isn't actually that old. I believe he's like, I actually can't remember his age. Tom Mitchell age. I remember looking at him like, he's not old. So 29, yeah, he's not actually that old. I sort of thought he was more like 31, 32. So he's got plenty of good footy left in him. He should have the mid role. I don't think Collingwood would have picked him up if he wasn't going to play full-time mid. They needed like an inside mid. And he seems like he could get literally every CBA when he's out there. So I reckon he's got a bit of a point to prove as well. Like, Sydney disrespected him hard. And when he went to Hawthorn, he was playing like he had a point to prove. And I reckon Hawthorn ended up disrespecting him pretty hard as well. So I reckon he comes to Collingwood with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think he can average back in the 120s. So it's a big ask, but he's not that old. It's not like he's picking a Gary Ablett when he came back to Geelong. It's not like you're picking a Dangerfield. Like, he is actually quite, not young, but he's kind of prime age. And, like, he's a Brownlow medalist at the end of the day. 528k. Can he be a top 8 mid? Absolutely. Is he going to be? That's the question. So you have to wait up with Titch, but I think he has, he's very capable of starting seasons very hot. So I think don't pick him at your own peril as well. So that'll do it for the mids. As far as I'm concerned, there's not too many more mids that are relevant besides the mid prices. Like, Hopper's a must. Who's the other one? Sheed's an interesting one. I'd like to wait and see on the preseason. But that's pretty much it in terms of the mids. I wouldn't pick anyone else. Yeah, there's literally no one else. So wait and see for those two. Because those two, for Sheed, sorry. Because he might have to come in for 300k as a cash cow. But that is the mids for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I'll see you on the forwards.